In this video, we're going to look at how you can maximize your time and effort in marketing your podcast to the masses. It's easy after planning, recording, editing, and finally releasing your episode to feel a bit apprehensive about the task of marketing your podcast. With the ever-growing list of trending social media channels and advice from marketing gurus on YouTube, it is easy to not know exactly where to start. First off, the most important thing when marketing your podcast is to understand who your audience is and where they live. By now, you should know the type of people that will listen to your podcast. The next task is to see where they congregate online and in person. For example, a podcast about comic books from the 1990s might have an audience that ranges from 35 to 50 and predominantly may congregate at comic book shops, Facebook groups devoted to that era of comic books, Reddit boards, and may attend local Comic Cons. So your marketing efforts may be a combination of engaging with those social media channels, leaving flyers at local comic book shops, and trying to attend any Comic Cons in your area. That said, it is important to understand what each marketing push should attempt to provide to your audience, such as educating your audience that your podcast exists and carries weight within your niche. Depending on your niche, there may be no competition for ears, or there may be thousands of similar podcasts out there, all marketing to the same people, providing content that your audience actually wants to listen to. This isn't to say that you can't make episodes that only you have an interest in. It just means that you should be aware of what your audience is looking for at a given time, making the process of consuming your show as easy as possible. Consider how much time podcast listeners spend already consuming shows and potential new listeners who have never listened to a podcast before. The barrier for entry should be as low as possible. While there are a ton of marketing strategies that we could follow, let's focus on the following strategies that are excellent for beginner podcasters: social media, guest spots, in-person events, and guerrilla tactics. Social media is arguably one of the first places that new podcasters look to share their episodes. It makes sense. We all have some social media that we all tend to use, and it is relatively easy to share out a link to your show. Let's take a look at some of the benefits and negatives of using social media. Benefits: easy audience identification. Depending on the platform, there may be dedicated groups and pages full of people that already share your interest. It is relatively easy to consume your podcast on social. Although not ideal, a link shared on social to your show or episode is a low bar for entry for people to consume your podcast. However, ask yourself, when was the last time that you listened to a podcast directly through social media? Let's take a look at some of the negatives. Follower count does not equal download count. You may have thousands of followers on a platform, but only a small percentage of them may be willing to go off platform to listen to your newest episode. Platforms may change over time. You have zero control over how social media platforms display, promote, or affect your reach with your audience. Look at X, formerly Twitter, and Facebook, for example. Both companies have altered their platforms in recent years that have prioritized paid posts over unpaid for the largest reach. Some general advice when it comes to picking what platform to focus on is to pick only one platform to start with. Ideally, it should be a platform that you already are familiar with and that you primarily use daily. When it comes to post types, here are some common types to consider. Behind-the-scenes posts. These could be pictures or video of your process of producing your podcast. Episode posts. These are typically links to either new or older episodes in your back catalog. Grabbing attention with these can be as simple as a text excerpt from the episode, a notable quote, eye-catching episode art, or even an audio snippet. Engagement posts. It may sound a bit bizarre, but you should be actively engaging with others in your niche on social media. Aside from commenting on others' posts, engagement posts could be anything from posing questions to your followers, reposting, or simply asking your audience what they want to hear next. A common question is when you should post and how often. That all depends on your podcast release schedule and if you have the time available to craft resources and schedule your posts. But let's take a look at a sample schedule for a podcast that releases once a week. This podcast has a release date of Tuesday and a recording day of Friday. With Friday being our recording day, we're going to focus on hyping our audience with behind-the-scenes photos and maybe even an impromptu reel that shows off how excited we are to get recording and when this new episode will drop. Saturday, we're going to focus on engaging with our audience. Again, this could be as simple as taking a few minutes out of the day to comment on others' posts and actually be social on social media. Sunday is the day we edit our podcast. Just like with our recording day, we could show our editing process, again to tease the new episode is coming. This is a good time to ask for people to follow your podcast so they are the first to get the new episode. Monday, the day before our episode release date, we really want to tease what to expect. So we're going to throw in a short reel, this time more polished, that does two things. It tells people that a new episode is coming out tomorrow, and it features a small sample of the new episode that is extremely intriguing to our audience. Tuesday, episode release day. This is where you flood your social media following with links to your new episode. Wednesday, the day after the release, you want to focus on trying to convince anyone who maybe saw our link the previous day but didn't click to engage. So I recommend another sample of your new episode, either in the form of a short video clip, audiogram, or quote that will do the work of getting people to click over to your new episode. Thursday, engage again with your audience. Do not spam your new episode into every comment you reply to. Remember that engaging with your audience in a genuine way will build authority within that niche. You have links all throughout your page and profile. So if people like your comments and view your profile, they will find your podcast. Thursday is also where you can tease what's coming up in the following week. Again, this is an example of a podcast social media posting schedule. Depending on your specific needs of your show, you may want to post more than this or less. But this should give you an idea of what specific posts you should be thinking about and that may resonate with your audience. Aside from social media promotion, guest spots are another fantastic option for promotion. Guest spots typically involve you reaching out to other podcasts within your chosen niche and serving as a guest on their show. So what are some of the benefits of a guest spot? This method gets you right in front of not only your target audience, but the members of your target audience that are already active podcast listeners. This method also grows your notoriety and authority within your niche, as well as helps to foster relationships with podcasters that have been doing it for a while. What are some of the drawbacks of doing guest spots, though? The biggest negative is that this method requires that you approach and pitch your show to another podcaster that you may not know directly. When pitching your guest spot, consider the following. Why would another podcast want to bring you on as a guest? What can your experience and insight bring to their audience? What does the hosting podcaster get in return? Maybe a guest swap. What is a guest swap, you might ask? In essence, they come on your show, and in return, you get to go on their podcast. Outside of digital methods, there are a great deal of in-person methods that you could use to market your show. Live shows. Live shows are a great way to take your podcast on the road and introduce it to people who just have an interest in your topic but aren't full podcast listeners. Here's a trick. Try to pair your live show with venues and adjoining events that share your chosen niche. For example, if you're a movie podcast, you may want to do an opening discussion either before or after a popular movie plays. Convention setups. Find out where your niche gathers around for industry events and try to table there. Conventions serve as a fantastic way to connect with potential listeners and grow the awareness of your podcast with people who already share your interest. The final method falls within the category of guerrilla marketing tactics. Things like leaving flyers, stickers, business cards with your podcast logo, and a QR code in public spaces are more or less aimed at trying to catch the eyes and curiosity of people in the public. A good example of this would be leaving a flyer for your comic book podcast at an actual comic book store. Keep in mind, depending on the city you post in, there may be laws against public solicitation. If posting at a business, always ask the owner for permission first before you leave any sort of publicity materials. So let's take a minute to review what we've learned. The primary principle to market your podcast is to understand who your audience is and where they congregate. Understand what the overarching goals of your marketing activities are before starting. Social media can be a great first step in getting the word out on your podcast, but should be done in addition to other marketing strategies, such as guest spot swaps, in-person events, and guerrilla marketing. Marketing your podcast can feel like a daunting task, in addition to the planning, recording, and editing of your podcast. But with a plan in place that focuses on targeted outcomes of your marketing activities, you can succeed in building a bigger audience.